All right, welcome to our last session of Geneva Health Forum 2024. Again, as I was saying before, we do have a dynamic program here full of pitching competitions, awards, and the last words from the key players of the Geneva Health Forum. And the first, actually, is to open the session. Is Sophia Achab, president of the Geneva Health Forum and head of the WHO Collaborative Center in Mental Health. Welcome, Sophia. Please, a warm round of applause.
It's my very pleasure and honor to, on behalf of the steering committee of the Geneva Health Forum and its founding institutions, to welcome you all for this closing ceremony. This last session reflects very well the diversity of topics and backgrounds of speakers, stakeholders, and partners, including policymakers, public health professionals, healthcare workers, researchers, students, people with lived experiences, NGOs, industry, journalists, media technicians and producers, academic institutes delegates, international organizations, eminent journal editors, and many more pieces of the crucial ecosystem of Geneva Health Forum, connecting Geneva to all parts of the globe. It illustrates once again how science from field fills knowledge gaps and serves capacity building, policy making, and multilateral cooperation in critical issues to global health agenda, such as environment, migration, and communicable diseases, the three themes of this year's conference. I leave you in the good hands of Ariane and Emily for the first part of the ceremony, showcasing young and brilliant researchers with key interests and findings. Thank you.
Thank you, Sophia. Now, before we begin, I would like to remind you that you have headsets right at the end of this room, because our next session will be simultaneous in French and English. So without further ado, let me introduce you to my co-moderator for this particular session, Emily Reeves. She is the representative of the Swiss School of Public Health. You might have seen her standing outside alongside the beautiful posters that we have.
Yeah, thank you so much for the kind introduction. It's really a pleasure to be here representing the Swiss School of Public Health, which is the national coordinating body for public health sciences and research in Switzerland. So it was very nice to see so many faces by the booth, as you mentioned, Ariane. And it's still not too late. If you'd like to know more about the Swiss School of Public Health, then please come and find me at the booth. I'd be more than happy to welcome you there. A little bit about what we're going to see now, the Science Speed Talks. These were organized between the Swiss School of Public Health and the Geneva Health Forum. It is essentially a competition in which students from around the world who have submitted a poster to the Geneva Health Forum could present their research in just 3 minutes. This is very difficult to do, as you can imagine. They submitted this research through a video, which was then sent to a selection committee. Myself and other of my colleagues from the Swiss School of Public Health had the pleasure to be able to review these videos. We had 19, and we selected 4 finalists. And these 4 finalists went on to receive expert training from a specialist in communication, and the result of this training is what we're going to see today. So I'm very much staying tuned and looking forward to being able to hear these fantastic presentations, which I'm sure are to come.
Thank you, Emily. Now listen up, because you will all have a role to play in this competition. 4 doctoral candidates will have 3 minutes each to present their projects in the clearest and most compelling manner to you, the audience. You will all then vote for the presentation that you deem the most remarkable, and the winner will earn a prize of 1,000 Swiss francs. They will come here again, present themselves, present their projects in 3 minutes, and pay attention to this, because I may stop you if the time runs out. And then Emily will ask you a question or two, and we'll open the floor to the audience to ask just one more question. So after the session, we will be giving you a QR code so you can all vote for your favorite. Let's begin. Our first candidate is Ines Yebouet, from the Institut National Polytechnique, Félix, Houphouët, Boigny of the Côte d'Ivoire. Right now, you can present yourself.
I can present myself? Okay. Merci.
Thank you for giving me the floor. My name is Ahou, Cinthia, Ines Yebouet. And even though I'm not in my home country, I would like to welcome you by saying Akuba. I have a master's in molecular biology, in which I was acquainted with the fascinating world of antibiotics. My work was involved identifying antiretroviral bacteria such as Escherichia coli, which had a certain resistance to antibiotics. I was fascinated by this work, and I decided to continue my PhD on this topic with vegetables as my matrices. When I'm not in my lab, I'm quite involved in organization, various aspects of organization in my country. I participated in the organization of the 6th Chemist Scientific Day, the activities on 1/11, and doctoral activities. Just before coming here with my team, we participated in a U7 challenge, which consisted of presenting a project on the theme of the year. And of course, we won the first prize. And our project was to propose a solution for children who had learning delays, learning difficulties. This is my first project outside of my country, here in Geneva, and I'm delighted to be able to share this moment with you.
Thank you, Ines. Now, you will have 3 minutes to present your project, starting now.
Il était une fois un homme visionnaire.
Once there was a visionary man, Félix Houphouët Boigny, who, after having led his country to independence, he decided to make his town Yamoussoukro a symbol of prosperity. That led to the creation of Notre-Dame de la Paix, the largest basilica in the world, but also a fascinating system of lakes. However, these lakes became the scene of a less great reality pollution. Waste coming from human activities and sewage, it all converges into this lake, which is the source of irrigation water for the crops around this lake. All the studies that were carried out came to the same conclusion. There was room for improvement in the quality of the lake, and in addition they established a link between infectious diseases in the lake and the health of the inhabitants. Now, the need for antibiotics was becoming more and more urgent, but that lead had not been explored. Therefore, we thought it would be a good idea to contribute to the reduction of infectious diseases which might originate from that lake by carrying out more in-depth studies of pathogens which might be present in the Yamoussoukro lake and also in the market gardening crops around the lake. Our study revealed a grim and worrying reality. The artificial lake of Yamoussoukro and the crops around it are a reservoir of resistance to antibiotics. And the names of these organisms sound as a warning. High resistance to solicitine in lettuces, worrying resistance to for public health. So we thought when we realized all these resistances, we thought this was rather a lot and that it was time to react. It was time to react with determination in order to preserve the vision of Félix, Houphouët, Boigny, and to preserve the splendor of these lakes. We then characterized in genomic fashion the bacteria which we found in order to combat the transferability of this resistance. It's a race against the clock to preserve our health. Thank you for your attention. And don't forget to wash your vegetables and cook them properly before you eat them.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Ines. I'll let Emily ask one question and then the audience another question. So start thinking about it.
Thank you so much, Ines, for this wonderful talk. It's clear that you're interested in antibiotic resistance in the lakes, in the artificial lakes that you mentioned. I was wondering, could you tell us a little bit more about the artificial lakes in the rest of the country? What does that look like? In English?
Oh. Ok, dans le reste de la ville ou le... Ok, donc au niveau de mon...
At the level of my country, there are no other artificial lakes to my knowledge. It's only in Yamoussoukro that there is a system of lakes, 10 communicating lakes. The president built these lakes in such a way that at least 3 of the lakes go in front of his residence. And then he added caimans to some of the lakes because he liked this animal. So the lakes became touristic, a tourist attraction. And unfortunately, over the years, the pollution control system began to fail. So there is no longer any cleaning of the water. The SIAPL, which is our anti-pollution center, started to remove some pollution. The physical pollution, but we have not seen, there was only visual cleaning, not cleaning of the material, of the bacteria.
You will all be voting. Anything, any doubts out there? Yes.
Merci Inès pour cette...
Thank you, Ines, for this extremely interesting presentation. I have a question. What form does this resistance to antibiotics take in Côte d'Ivoire? Is it greater in the lakes or on the coast? Is it really only in your country that there is this resistance, or is it elsewhere? Answer. Well, the resistance to antibiotics is all over the country. There is even a benchmark center which tries to form a directory of the different forms of resistance. In 2002, we had about 9% staphylococcus, and now we've gone up to 46% in 2018. So this resistance had increased, and this center is listing the data as we progress. Now, as far as malaria is concerned, malaria is an endemic disease in my country. So this resistance to malaria is much better listed than other forms of bacterial resistance. But this center is examining more and more the various parasites that could cause resistance.
Thank you. Thank you, Ines. Okay, our second candidate of the evening is Priyanka Gadhave from the Indian Institute of Technology in Bombay, India. Welcome. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Namaste and bonjour. I am Priyanka. I study PhD, or I'm a doctoral student at the Indian Institute of Technology, Bombay, India. Firstly, I would like to thank the organizers for such a wonderful opportunity. Thank you, Valerie, and thank you, Eric. Then I would like to thank, somebody can put up my slide? Yes. Yeah, thanks. I'd like to thank my supervisor and my co-contributors, Gagan and Marian, also in the photographs. Lastly, I would like to thank my parents, coincidentally, both doctors, today witnessing their engineering kid present at the Geneva Health Forum. I was born and brought up in India, in the western parts of India. I started with mechanical engineering bachelor's there. Then I did my double master's in innovation design engineering at the Royal College of Art and Imperial College London. There I realized I really like interacting with people, and I'm fascinated by the way they interact. So to test this hypothesis, I moved to rural, remote South India, where I did not know the language. And believe me, that was the best decision of my whole life. Look how happy I am in the top corner photo. Then I worked with tribal residential schools, NGOs, entrepreneurs, frontline workers. Then I finally decided that child nutrition and public policy was a thing for me. I love spending time in the field at all levels, and much of my research is based on the lived experience and observations that I have on the field. And I was lucky to get opportunities to transfer these observations or these field experiences into actual policy and implementation. And you would see in my research that I'll present later, it's also an example of that. On personal interests, I absolutely love chai. Like, on the scale of, if you want to kidnap me, just tell me that there's chai in the van, and that's done. I'm learning classical music. I love reading, traveling, making new friends, long discussions, saris, and yes, languages. I'm on my 6th Indian language while miserably failing at French. Yeah, the R is difficult. And yeah, so lastly, while doing things that I really love and figuring out where my heart is, as such, it has been a crazy, crazy journey, but it has been a really enriching one. And GHF, the experience, the conversations that I've had here are now a beautiful part of it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So enriching to know much more about you.
Thank you.
All right. The session for your presentation starts now.
Now, think of those millions of poor, illiterate migrant mothers and their children who, with their families seeking work, find themselves in new, unfamiliar places in resource-poor settings in India. Neglecting their nutrition has severe issues. In the words of frontline workers, we make these children healthy, then they leave. Months later, they return severely malnourished, some nearly dying. Temporary migration is such a common phenomenon in India. What do you think is the number of studies on its impact on nutritional services? A scoping review suggests that there are literally none. So our ethnographic study looks at the barriers of the supposedly universal Integrated Child Development Services, or the ICTS program, in Maharashtra and Bihar, 2 states with really high migration. And we're looking at important services like supplementary nutrition, immunization, and health checkups. Based on thematic analysis of our observations and interviews, we have arrived at several themes. First is the lack of control. Temporary migrants and their movements are unpredictable. Many leave without informing, and contact is lost in most of the cases. So workers cannot inform them what they need or how do they access services at the destination. And here we see a missed technological opportunity, as currently there is no way to track or update migration status. However, technology alone cannot solve migration-related issues without considering mobility patterns and structural challenges. In some cases, we observe technology as hindrance. Then, at the destination, lack of documentation, temporary and domicile status, workers have very little incentive to include migrants. In their words, with the workload that we have, we are barely managing our own beneficiaries in our own communities. Then we have to stress that ICDS has a demand-based structure. That is, though the front line helps locate beneficiaries, it is the responsibility of the beneficiaries to track and access services. And many women do not demand services because language barriers, gender ethnicity norms, then we have temporary status, restrictions by labor contractor. Many don't even feel they're eligible for services at their location or labor site. And long story short, many women and children return back severely malnourished and anemic. In conclusion, universal health and nutrition that we all keep talking about means that everyone, including migrant mothers and their children, gets equal access. And it needs systemic strengthening and sensitization at multiple levels. We have to recognize migrants as not just beneficiaries, but active participants of the policy processes themselves. And it requires a deeper understanding of their socio-political realities. And this was a humble attempt at it. Thank you.
Thank you. Great job. Thank you so much. Now I'll let Emily ask her first question.
Thank you, Priyanka, for shedding light on such an important topic. You mentioned that there are obviously many, many difficult challenges here. What would be your, based on the research and what you've been describing, what would be your one policy recommendation for changing things the way that they are?
There are many, but I'd stick to the most important, is the effective service delivery or portability of services for migrants. And that can be achieved by a three-pronged approach. One is leveraging human-centered, and I underline, bold, double quote, human-centered technology, capacity building, and sensitization, mostly of the front line, but also at all the levels of the administrative tier. And lastly, more awareness on the part of the beneficiaries about their entitlements.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. A question from the audience? No brave souls out there?
You are sure nobody wants to speak? Because I can speak
There's
again.
one over there.
Ah.
There's one hand.
I have so much to tell.
Thank you very much for your presentation and for your research. You mentioned that it's important to know the migration patterns, and I would like to know more about the population who migrate to India, where they come from, and you mentioned that they are temporary. Why temporary?
Thank you for the question, really important. So India is a really big country, and it is a diverse country in terms of we have like 28 different languages that we speak, and geography. And we do have a lot of inequality. So the migrants that I am talking of are temporary because in some regions which are poorer, which lack economic opportunities, the people there move. We generally call it distress-driven migration for seeking livelihoods in other parts of the country. And the population that I'm speaking about, we have data from the 2011 census, and you can just extrapolate it to have more number. But Bihar alone had almost 27 million people move out of the state for temporary migration, many of them women and children. So yeah, it's because of the social inequality, searching for livelihoods, that they have to migrate. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Priyanka.
Thank you.
Up next, allow me to introduce you to Philippe Voruz from Geneva, Switzerland. He is going to present the economic burden of the post-COVID-19 state. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity. I will present in French. Croyez-moi,
it's more difficult to talk about myself than my research. I kind of had, well, I asked some people around me to describe, and we're going to see this on the slide. I asked my colleagues and my family, my kids, to tell me what they saw in the work that I did. And it's not without humor. You can see that I began by studying psychology and neurology. My colleagues described me after a day's work here in the train coming home. And here you can see the comments. I asked my two boys, 8 and 15, to describe their father. And their answer was, he studies something like the brain, but he likes to vacuum the house a lot. So that's the description of myself that I got from the family. I'm a good vacuumer in the house. And I have to thank my two sons who aren't here this evening for that, who gave me a little bit of insight, and they were happy that I showed their drawing. Now, my two worlds, family and my research. I attach a great deal of importance to the invisible handicaps, things that we don't see, neurological, but which have a heavy impact on people's lives.
We received, try to stay just
okay,
a
I will
little
stay
bit.
there, no problem.
For camera
I like to move.
purposes. All right, so are you ready for your project presentation?
Yes, no problem.
Okay, 3, 2, 1.
This evening, I'm going to talk about the economic impact and the consequences of neuropsychological deficit estimation. We saw that environmental changes impacted different neurological pathologies, for example, Parkinson's. But one of the common characteristics were the cognitive symptoms, memory loss, difficulty to recognize emotions like sadness. Now, despite all of the progress of our knowledge here, there's still a lot of things we don't know. For example, the impact that this has on our overall health, and on the economic cost to each of our societies. We were able to evidence the fact that these cognitive disorders, including sickle cell anemia, was one of the best predictors than the other, than visible problems and handicaps. Let me go back a few years now to the COVID-19 epidemic. We had a project aimed at trying to measure the neurological, neuropsychological, olfactive, and psychiatric disorders that this provoked. And we were able to see that there was a persistent deficit in learning ability over the long term in terms of brain imagery and other tests, and this among different kinds of patients. The project also allowed us to see what the potential effect of these cognitive disorders were on society as a whole. We saw that in the United States, the estimated post-COVID cost would be $600 billion a year. So this is why this project, COVID-COG, decided to take a closer look at the direct and indirect impacts on the neurosystem, and also to see what kind of care needed to be afforded to these patients to attenuate the clinical effects as well as the long-term effects on society. To conclude, environmental change has created indirect impacts on the prevalence of these kinds of learning disorders, just like growing old and other factors. But it still hasn't been totally studied. We have been able to study the clinical impacts, and we know that this has an impact on society and is a huge economic burden to society. Thank you.
Voruz from the University of Geneva, Switzerland. Emily, any questions for him?
Sure, thank you so much, Philippe. From your research, is there a story, an example of what you could share about what it means to be living with the consequences of neuropsychological deficits?
Yes, sure. Actually, it's quite interesting because at the beginning of the project, we didn't expect to observe what we did observe. And actually, we had the opportunity to observe a specific profile of patients who actually experienced anosognosia. Anosognosia is actually a lack of awareness of your cognitive deficits. It's some patients that come to see us, they wanted to participate to the research, and when we did the anamnesis, they told us, oh yes, I do not have problems, everything is fine, no problem, and subjectively, we will say, okay, it's fine. But when we do our objective measures, psychometric measures of different cognitive function, we observe that he had deficits. And more interestingly, when we speak actually with their wife or members of the family, and also when we have some information from their jobs, we observe that deficits like programmation deficits or memory deficits had an impact on these patients actually in their life and also when they were working. For example, imagine you cannot shift from one task to another and you're working in a bank and you see all this information. You will make some errors, and more of, if you're not aware of your deficits, you will not see your difficulties, and this could have an impact by losing your job and having an impact also on your family and afterwards on our society, because we have to help these people, and also if we don't mitigate the symptoms, it can be a chronicization of the symptoms, and maybe in the future the insurance could take part and things like that. So there is plenty of examples of different deficits who impact differently actually, but this one is an example that we observed actually in our projects.
Thank you so much,
You're
Philippe.
welcome.
Fantastic.
Any questions from the audience? Yes, we have one there.
Hi, I was wondering, what you just explained, how can you be sure that these deficits are caused by COVID-19 and not by another infection of another virus, for example?
Thank you very much for your question. Actually, for the COVID project, the methodology, we screened about 4,000 to 5,000 medical records of patients from the University Hospitals of Geneva. It was a big project. It involved more than 11 different departments of the University Hospitals of Geneva. And actually, we had our exclusion criteria were very important because all our patients didn't have any clinical history of neurological, psychiatric, developmental, oncological, or immunological history. And moreover, actually after looking at the clinical records, we also performed a telephone interview by screening the life. And if we did suspect, like 30 years ago, you had a mild TBI, like a traumatic brain injury, but it wasn't diagnosed, we say, no, you cannot come. We wanted to be sure that our patient didn't have any clinical history of other pathologies that could eventually explain actually these effects. And that's why actually we had, I had three groups of patients. Patients who were in ECU, with all these criteria, who were in just conventional hospitalization in patients who weren't hospitalized for SARS-CoV-2 infection. And actually, we observed deficits in 3 groups, even if you had more risk when you were hospitalized in conventional and ECU. But it shows that actually the effect goes above even an ECU hospitalization, because we also observed this in other group of patients. That's what was interesting, actually. But it was very tough to find these patients in the ECU group, actually.
Thank you so much, Philippe.
Thank you.
A round of applause.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Our next candidate is Benedicta Apuamah from the Management Center, Innsbruck in Nigeria. Oh, Austria. So sorry.
Hello, everyone. May I have my slide up? So my name is Benedicta Apuamah. I am originally Nigerian. I have a Bachelor of Pharmacy degree from Nigeria, and I recently completed my Master's in International Health and Social Management from the Management Center Innsbruck in Austria. So a couple of years ago, after I left School of Pharmacy, I realized that I had a passion for community development projects. So I had identified some challenges in my community, and I thought, why not contribute, to improve the lives of young girls in my community? So I started out with campaigns against teenage pregnancy, menstrual hygiene. As you can see, a bunch of girls holding up sanitary pads all around me. And I thought that I was, supporting young girls in my community, I'm just trying to help. But I didn't realize that what I was doing had global relevance until one campaign selected me to be one of their youth ambassadors in Nigeria. And a few months after, they asked me to represent them in a conference in Belgium. So you can see a picture of me saying, "Hi, Brussels." It was my first international trip ever. I was so excited. And all of this project, with the one campaign and what I was doing, all culminated into the scholarship with which I studied at the MCI, the Ban Ki-moon Scholarship, because of my engagements with the UN SDGs. So you can see a picture of me at the MCI a few days after we arrived from Austria with my family. And you see a picture of my family with my son, Divine, and my husband, Frederick. That was taken 2 years ago at the Geneva Health Forum. And clearly we have a new family addition, David. And my family is somewhere over there at the end. I've actually noticed a pattern that every time I come to the Geneva Health Forum, I come with an additional baby. I so much love the Geneva Health Forum, and I would really love to be invited next year or in 2 years. I just hope that that's just on a lighter side. Thank you, Geneva Health Forum, for having me and for having my family.
Thank you so much. All right, raise your hand, the family of Benedicta. Oh, you're over there. Thank you for joining us. Okay, now on to you. Your pitching time starts now.
Did you know that despite the available sexual reproductive healthcare services in Austria, refugee women were not adequately accessing them? I became curious as to why, and my curiosity led me to identify enabling and restricting factors that influence their decisions. What were my key findings? Gender and cultural sensitivity. By sexual reproductive healthcare services, I refer to pre- and postnatal care, family planning, abortion care, including female genital mutilation care services, to mention but a few. In some culture, sexual reproductive health is considered intimate and should not be discussed in public. Let me paint a scenario. Mrs. B had just had a baby in the refugee camp and required postnatal care. Usually the camp coordinator or the social worker helps them book hospital appointments because of the presence of a language barrier. In this case, the camp coordinator, whom Mrs. B is most familiar with, is unavailable. Hence, the social worker was filling in for her. The social worker required some information from her to enable her book, the hospital appointment. Mrs. B would not oblige. Why? Because she didn't trust her well enough. The social worker goes the extra mile to call a friend of Mrs. B who spoke her local language fluently and spoke German. She still will not oblige. Okay, let me paint another scenario. Mrs. C had just booked an appointment with a gynecologist, including the services of a female translator. On arrival, a male translator shows up. That was the end of the appointment because she insisted on having a female translator. But it was, however, interesting to note that whenever a healthcare practitioner demonstrated cultural sensitivity in their delivery of sexual reproductive health, the gender did not matter anymore. For instance, the women were happily going to a male Arabic gynecologist because he spoke the language fluently and had an understanding of their culture. Cultural sensitivity in this context can simply mean arranging for translation services or using more subtle terms as against medical jargons. It is therefore highly recommended that in the delivery of sexual reproductive health, that cultural sensitivity be adopted, because sexual reproductive health is a human right. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Benedicta. Emily, on to you.
Yeah, thank you so much. It was really interesting to hear there what you were saying about this cultural sensitivity. Could you give us, I don't know, an insight into what you've maybe found surprising or interesting about the respondents that you had? So with regard to what you were talking about there.
Okay, so there was this particular respondent who, because of the trauma from her migration history, had developed a phobia for the male gender. And she had to be moved from the normal refugee camp with men and women to another camp, with women and children. Although eventually, when I asked further, because a part of the interview included, wanting to know if they are assigned to a gynecologist or they have to see a different one every other day. It was interesting to see that this particular respondent was actually attached to a female gynecologist. So I can't help but imagine what it would have been like if she had a male gynecologist.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, opening the floor for questions. We just need one question.
Please ask me.
There's one over there.
Thank you, Benedicta. Your work is just amazing. Thank you for introducing that to us. Can you give us a bit of insight on who are those women in Austria, from where they are coming from, how they reach this place, and what is maybe the way to reach Austria, please?
Thank you very much. So I had 9 respondents who were refugee women, and the other 2 respondents were the camp coordinator and the social worker. So for the refugee women, I had a woman from Nigeria, Ghana. A greater percentage of them were from Somali. We had someone from Afghanistan and Syria. And I listened to some of the stories, on how they moved from their countries of origin, particularly some of the women from Somalia. They told me they actually came by foot from Somali to Greece and from Greece to Austria. So their stories are really wonderful.
Really touching, indeed. Thank you so much, Benedicta.
Thank you.
Okay, time has come to vote. We will be showing a QR code in here and a little summary for you. We had Ines Yebouet from Côte d'Ivoire. She spoke about antibiotic resistance bacteria recovered from Yamoussoukro man-made lake and surrounding lettuce. The second candidate, we had Priyanka Gadhave from India. She spoke about navigating welfare, a study on the implications of temporary migration on nutrition services in India. The third, we had Philippe Voruz from Geneva, Switzerland. The economic burden of the post-COVID-19 state, underestimating COVID deficit. This was an overview of the COVID co-project. And finally, you just heard from Benedicta Apuamah from Austria. She's from Nigeria, but currently in Austria. She spoke about acceptability of sexual reproductive health services amongst refugee women in Tyrol, Austria. Again, this is the last call for you to vote. Please scan your QR code and do vote for your favorite. So as we allow a few moments to process all of the votes, I would like to welcome back Sophia Achab, the co-president of the Geneva Health Forum and head of the WHO Collaborative Center in Mental Health.
Ariane? I'm happy to wrap up the 3 days conference on the theme of health, a common good. Someone asked me this afternoon, did we walk the talk? Each participant can better tell if we met expectations. We will take into account feedbacks from audience and partners as we are a learning organization, so thank you for your feedbacks. I believe from my side that we were aligned with famous World Health Organization slogans, united for a better health, trying hard to leaving no one behind. We dove into environment and the impacts of climate change on health of individuals. We heard about solutions from the field or from experts on how to change practices and produce actionable data. We celebrated with the movie Dalal Story Refugee, its World Health Organization award. We celebrated with Lancet Europe Migration Series, the launch of the guiding papers on the way to go to improve migrants' conditions. We were moved by migrants themselves in their own world testimonies. We were admirative to the courage and endless support of professionals from NGOs and Red Cross Federation to migrants and their health. We amplified voices of those working towards eliminating malaria, including using vaccines. We offered space for a whole day of multi-professional and international workshops on ethics in cooperation, ethics in research, and sustainability of health systems. A set of guiding principles is the concrete deliverable of the Day on International Hospital Cooperation held at University Hospitals of Geneva. We as well hosted deans of public health schools, very renowned and eminent professionals over the globe. The main key messages from the conference is the need for a joint multi-sectorial approaches to improve even further the 3 main themes of the conference. We made our conference present in temples of academia, healthcare, SDG solution space, and tourism in the city of Geneva, Geneva the International, Geneva the Compassionate, and the pioneer in many progresses for individuals. Geneva grants us today with an additional gift. It will wear the colors of Geneva Health Forum with the sunset today, so don't miss it. Thank you.
Thank you, Sophia. We, of course, couldn't leave without the perspectives of the director of the Biotech campus, Nicolas Durand. Welcome on stage.
So good evening, everybody. It's a great pleasure to be here, and I would like just to share a very few words because over the last few days, I don't know for you, but I have been feeling something a little bit different than for all the other conferences I have been attending. And I was a little bit wondering what is this feeling that was sounding so different, and now I know exactly what it was. It's a common point that I have seen in every single participant where you guys want to have a sincere positive impact on humanity. And this is something that is pretty rare for a conference, I can tell you. And then I'm feeling very honored that you have decided to realize this conference here in Geneva, but also in this wonderful campus biotech. I'm pretty new in that function of managing the centers. It's only 3 months that I have been starting, but I see myself as a part of one of you, in the sense that when I was at the age of 14, I decided that I wanted to become an entrepreneur for having a strong impact on humanity. And at the age of 14, I created my first company in the IT. And we decided with my friend, with whom we have been starting this business, to send all the money that we have been gaining to the Chaîne du Bonheur, which is an association for emerging countries for helping people. And then it has developed in me something that I really liked, who was looking for making a stronger impact. And I did a PhD in nanotechnology, and I started a company with having the aim of solving one of the biggest problems of human health in terms of diagnostics, which is about sepsis diagnostics. So the pitch that I have been hearing before with the antibiotic resistance, I can just tell you this is something extremely important, and that will be most probably one of the next pandemic we are going to fight. So very important points that we have been hearing tonight and the other day of this conference. Campus Biotech is an extraordinary center, and this is why I decided to take over this challenge of managing this site, because I see it not only as one of the main centers into the neurotechnologies and neurocenters in the world, because the reality, the DNA that we have today in this site is that we have 3 major institutes, which are EPFL, University of Geneva, and HUG, that have decided to put in this site here their most renowned and best neurotechnology experts, neuroscientists, and of course global health professors and academicians. And that makes this place something absolutely unique in terms of research on mental disease, on brain-machine interface. And I see also a huge potential of development, because not only because we are in this international Geneva and we have access to many organizations that are just next door, but also because we are facing today a strong development about artificial intelligence. All of us, we all know that. But in Switzerland, we are not that good in developing IT technologies like the AI technology that we see, because we are just slow people. We like to take our time, but we like also to make things in a very high quality way. So this is why we are very good at life science and at health technologies by themselves, because that takes a lot of time. You need to demonstrate with high quality studies that you are making things in an appropriate way. But we are definitively into this heart of the Health Valley, and you are very welcome, all of you, to visit the different parts of this city and to realize how great it is. Now, just to come back specifically of what we are offering here on this site, my team is also managing not only events, organizations, and logistics like this one, but also platforms, scientific platforms. We have MRI technologies with 3T and 7 Tesla scanner. We have electroencephalograms that are just at the top of the technologies. The MEG is something absolutely unique to cartography and have display of the brain. We have VR technologies with people developing apps to put your patients, before you put them into the MRI, you want to create emotions, you want to monitor what is going to happen in different situations. We have clinical and sleep research facilities. We have robotics, biomarkers, laboratories, clean rooms, genome centers. So this is really a fantastic place. And I think we need to continue developing this uniqueness and not being in competition with the village next door, but being somewhere in this planet where science and research can really produce something unique that have an impact for humanity. So I will just finish by just mentioning something as a citation. And don't take that too personally if you are from those countries. It's more than a joke. But you know what we said. US innovates, China replicates, and Europe regulates. And today, what I can see is that China is not replicating anymore. You know, China is also innovating. And here in Switzerland, we are trying our best to stay at the top of innovation, but we are still following the European Union way of regulation. And this is something that is very dangerous because it kills innovation. And we have to stay in a way where we can continue producing good research, top product, and we can continue to have a strong impact. And for that, it's very simple. We need courage and responsibility. And this is something I think that has been very well promoted during this conference. So thank you very much and enjoy this evening.
Thank you, Nicolas. And up next, I would love to introduce to you the State Councillor responsible for the Department of Health and Mobility in Geneva. Please welcome Pierre Maudet.
Merci. Quelques mots de ma part.
Just a few words in my capacity as a member of the government of the Republic and Canton of Geneva after these inspiring words from Nicolas, who is the manager of this place. Mr. Vice President of ICRC, directors of the various institutions who are represented here. I would like to say that obviously the government of the Republic and Canton of Geneva supports this event and also supports the spirit that you hope to inspire. And of course this event coincides with the WHA, the World Health Assembly. And but of course the global context is extremely difficult and environmental challenges are great, as are the security challenges, as we can see from the images that we see in the media every day. We can see that various parts of the world are going through very difficult situations. As we've heard just now, Geneva is a very cosmopolitan city because of its international organizations, and also because of the presence of a large number of students who are training and being educated here, who meet here. They come from all four corners of the world. In fact, it's quite a good thing to confuse Austria and Nigeria because we like to have a mixing of this kind in Geneva. So Geneva tries to mix people and ideas and also institutions, particularly as I see here the ad interim director of the HUG, the Geneva University Hospitals. I would also like to welcome Professor Chapuis, who has been deeply committed in Africa and Nepal, and who has projected our knowledge over and beyond the borders of Geneva when it comes to helping. And the Geneva Health Forum has also done a lot through the HUG and through the ICRC and through the presence of UNHCR and WHO and other organizations. The result of all this is a constant commitment to help populations who really do need to see an improvement in their health conditions. Well, I'm basing myself on what I've been told. This is the first event I've attended. Looking at Professor Flau here, I think GHF is also a platform for an exchange of knowledge. Often people think that the International Geneva is something rather stratospheric and abstract. And I've heard the pitches that have just been presented, and that's a very good reason to attend an event such as this. And of course, we have to build the links between the scientific community, researchers, and the population. And we need a space to be able to share. Together, we're better. And that's what I would like to retain from this conference. Nicolas Durand has just spoken about the responsibility of creating a momentum. This momentum has a meaning, and we together give this momentum a meaning. Health is a common good, that's your slogan this year, but it's not as obvious as all that. I've only been Minister of Health in Geneva for about 1 year, less than 1 year. Health is often considered as a profit-making private activity, but also an activity which juxtaposes various activities who lose sight of the common good. You have re-expressed the common good from 3 different angles. The environmental angle. Next week I will be giving you a local echo of this, and also in terms of migration, and also in terms of malaria, which is far from having been eradicated, and which really needs to be placed on and kept on the agenda. In keeping with Geneva's international tradition, the right to health is a corollary of human rights in the broad sense, and of all the rights that we defend all year round here. And it's also the cause of great inequalities and great disparities, which we are working to correct and reduce. But the right to health is an inalienable human right, and that's why we support the Geneva Health Forum, and we would like your activity to continue for a long time. It's a great melting pot for innovation. We hope that your activities will continue for a long time. We wish you a successful ending to your forum. Thank you very much indeed, Mr. Pierre Maudet.
That are very impatient to see or to discover the results. And this evening, we not only have 1 award, which was the speed talk, but we also have 3 other awards. The first one is the Morer Fondation, which will be rewarding a project, a prize on a project about tropical medicine. The other one will be about the best poster, one of the best posters, the best illustrations you have outside, and those ones were voted by the public. And finally, we have the poster of the Coupe de Corps Award, also about the posters outside, but this was voted by the private Fondation of the University Hospitals of Geneva. So that said, I want to invite back on stage Emily, and also François Chapuis, head of the Department of Tropical and Humanitarian Medicine of the Geneva University Hospitals, and Gaia Morer, president of Morer Fondation. And they have the winner to announce.
Oui. Bonsoir tout le monde. Anne Morer, c'était...
Anne Morer is a young Asian woman who studied fundamental sciences on neglected tropical medicines. First of all, in immunological diseases in Bolivia and Peru and Nepal. This is a common project that we had in our department. Then she left for the Swiss Tropical Medicine Institute, where she worked on the sleep disorder disease in the Democratic Republic of Congo. She died tragically in an accident recently, and her presence created a foundation in her name, which awards an award worth 20,000 Swiss francs every 2 years to the best research work about the clinical or epidemiological aspects of neglected tropical diseases. That's every 2 years. In 2024, this prize has been awarded to research work on leprosy to Dr. Apuamah from Antwerp and Dr. Asouani from the Union of Comoros and other partners. And this paper has just been this has just been published in the Lancet. This study covered more than 100,000 people, and they found that if you give a single dose of an antibiotic prophylactically, within a radius of 100 meters. This would be effective in reducing the incidence of malaria in the community. So this was quite extraordinary, and this evening we are fortunate enough to be able to receive Dr. Youssef Soumani from the Union of the Comoros, who I believe will be able to come onto the stage.
A big congrats to the winner.
Je suis très heureux de vous remettre ce prix pour le magnifique travail que vous avez fait. Merci beaucoup.
It's fantastic work. I think Dr. Asmani will be saying a few words. First of all, I would like to thank the Ivory Foundation for honoring us with this prize, because leprosy is a neglected tropical disease. But now, thanks to this award, it has become a less neglected tropical disease. I would like to thank the whole of the team that I work with. It's a prize which has been awarded not just to myself, but to a team of more than 300 people who work in research on this disease in order to reduce morbidity and also to reduce leprosy in our country and also in the wider world, because the work that we've been doing will have an impact on the future impact of this disease worldwide. I would like to thank our partners, the Foundation in Belgium, the Tropical Medicine Institute of Antwerp, Sakharova Foundation, and also the World Health Organization, WHO. I would like to thank all of you for having accepted to share this day with us. Thank you for being here.
Merci beaucoup. Suite à ça, on a l'occasion.
That gives us a better understanding. We will now be seeing a short film, a short video, a 3-minute video, which will give us a better understanding of this project.
A video about this winner.
The People Project, which commenced in 2019, contributes to leprosy elimination by supporting and providing scientific evidence. This project uses active door-to-door screening of households on the islands of Anjouan and Moheli to detect as many cases as possible. The newly detected patients are offered curative treatment. This method of systematically identifying people with the disease improves patient outcomes. It also facilitates the identification of people at risk of developing the disease. In addition, this project is testing different strategies to prevent the disease from developing in people with non-visible infection by comparing different strategies for the distribution of preventive treatment, also called post-exposure prophylaxis.
Et avec l'appui de l'Institut de médecine tropicale d'Anvers, nous menons une nouvelle stratégie qui vise effectivement de travailler et d'identifier d'autres médicaments pour prévenir la maladie, ce que nous appelons prophylaxie, c'est-à-dire des médicaments visant à protéger la population qui sont autour de ce qu'on appelle du cas index. Cela veut dire quoi? Du malade. Si on a un malade dans une famille, donc il faut faire en sorte que même s'il a transmis la maladie à d'autres, et ces d'autres-là n'ont pas encore développé la maladie, on peut stopper pour que la maladie ne se développe pas.
ITM supports by providing lab material and training of laboratory technicians during the study so that eventually all tests can be performed in Comoros.
Cette recherche nous permettra non seulement de réduire la maladie, mais il nous donne aussi les moyens pour que nous puissions réellement travailler sur le terrain.
Thanks to this research, the Comorian leprosy control program has been significantly strengthened and expanded, and the cooperation with Damien Foundation and the Institute of Tropical Medicine Antwerp has been reinforced. The knowledge of experienced personnel is systematically passed on to the younger generation. The People Project enables us to screen 70,000 people at risk of leprosy annually on the islands of Anjouan and Moheli. The project is an example of a successful, effective and respectful collaboration between partners with different expertise who work towards a common goal.
Bravo.
Congratulations.
The best poster. These are the illustrations that you have seen outside done by all participating organizations. The public has voted for a winner. Emily, would you do me the honor?
Certainly. So I'm very pleased to announce that the award goes to Stephanie Mvodo Mayo. Please come on up. This out.
That's a reaction.
Thank you so much. I don't know what to say, but I would like to dedicate this award to it may be my award, but it's the award of more than 60 people who have been working for 2 years on our project in Akonolinga. Unfortunately, my co-principal investigator is on her way. Alexandra Falke, and I dedicate this to her. Our project is about organizing a field school in Akonolinga, working on water-related diseases in the Nyon River. Akonolinga is deep to my heart. It's my hometown, and for more than 4 years, we have been working there, trying to link Akonolinga, which is a French-speaking part of Cameroon, and the English-speaking part where I'm working. I would also like to dedicate this to the Council of Akonolinga, my students who are present here. Thanks so much to the Geneva Health Forum who have been inviting us, and I'm so proud. Thank you so much.
Congratulations, Stephanie. And thank you so much, Emily, for the announcement. Now, I would like to invite back on stage Ms. Sophia Achab, co-president of the Geneva Health Forum, to announce the winner of the Poster Coup de Coeur Award, voted by the private foundation of the University Hospitals of Geneva. Again, this is another best poster, but voted by a different set of judges.
It's an honor to give this award on behalf of the Fondation privée des HUG. And the winner is Carmen Menendez for Geneva.
Carmen Menendez.
Por favor. Enhorabuena.
From the Geneva Sustainability Center of International Federation of Hospitals.
Enhorabuena a ti y te dejo para decir una palabra.
Muchas gracias. Thank you very much. It is a pleasure to be here and to receive this award on behalf of my organization, the Geneva Sustainability Center for the International Hospital Federation, And I want to thank la Fondation Privée des HUG, the Geneva Health Forum, and obviously the team of the Geneva Sustainability Center, our executive director, Sonia Roshnik, and my colleague, Mylene Dayola, who made this poster look so beautiful. Thank you very much, and I hope that this also help you think about the importance of sustainability for the healthcare sector and for hospitals in particular around the world. Thank you.
Thank you, Carmen, and congratulations. And now, the fourth and last award, the one some of you have been waiting for, the Science Speed Talks Award, the one that all of you just voted for. Emily?
It's my pleasure to announce that the winner of the Science Speed Talks 2024 is Benedicta Apuamah.
Thank you so much. I should totally do my dance. Thank you, everyone. This award is not just for me. I'm very grateful, first of all, to God for the strength given me to be able to study with a toddler and being pregnant with another child. And I'm grateful for my very supportive husband, for my children who had to stay quiet for me to study, and the one who had to endure being in the womb while doing my master thesis and all of that. Thank you so much. And just to put it out there, thank you to the Geneva Health Forum, to my school, the Management Center Innsbruck, for training me into a fine researcher worthy of recognition at the prestigious Geneva Health Forum. Thank you very much. And just to also put it out there that I am looking for my next role, because I mean, this is an example. If I'm able to study with 2 children and be able to get this, I am the girl for the job. If you have,
I want to invite the family on stage as well.
Please come.
They deserve the prize too.
Yes, if you have projects on women's health, migrant health, refugee health, I'm the girl for the job. Thank you so much. Here are my boys.
Talking about support. What an example of a great support system you have, Benedicta. So as this session comes to an end, we don't want to fully wrap up without a few last words from the key players at the Geneva Health Forum. The first, we have Andy Hin, professor of the London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine.
Well, thank you so much for inviting me to say a few words at the end of this important conference. And I know you must be very keen to leave, and you've given me a very tough role because I've got to follow some really outstanding and very succinct speakers. But let me just leave you with a few words, a few thoughts about the current challenges facing humanity, because, dear friends and colleagues, we are at an unprecedented point in human history. Because of the actions of humanity, we are filling the atmosphere with greenhouse gases. We have changed the world's climate. We are now at 1.2 degrees global average temperature above pre-industrial times. 6 of the 9 planetary boundaries, including climate change, are transgressed or on the point of being transgressed. And that will have far-reaching implications for human health that we're still understanding. It's really worrying and shocking to see that despite these changes. We're still emitting greenhouse gases, still continuing to increase the emissions of CO2, of methane, which is a potent short-lived greenhouse gases, and others too. So we're not taking the necessary action that we need to take in order to reduce the impacts on human health. And yet, there is a great deal that we can do. First of all, of course, we need to understand the impacts of climate change on health, and we've made quite a lot of advances in recent years of doing that, and you've heard some of those results earlier in this conference. But just to give you one or two examples, we can now say that about 30% of heat-related deaths based on data from 43 countries, can be attributed to human-induced climate change. So it's not just due to natural fluctuations in temperature. We know that some very vulnerable populations are also experiencing effects of climate change. We know that climate change increases the risk of stillbirth, of premature mortality. Work we've been doing with our colleagues in the Gambia and West Africa has shown that women subsistence farmers, at the end of a shift, you can see the fetal heart rate going up, and it's exactly in proportion to the amount of heat that they're exposed to, because the human body is trying to expel heat by diverting blood to the skin, and that takes blood away from the placenta and affects the fetus. We also know that many complex emergencies like droughts have been dramatically increased as a result of climate change. So the recent droughts in the Horn of Africa, for example, which affected 4.5 million people, have probably been made something like 100 times more likely as a result of climate change, because the extreme temperatures cause increased evaporation, transpiration. We know that wildfires affect health, that wildfire smoke particles get deep into the lungs, and they're more damaging even than the average pollution from urban sources. And that smoke can be distributed for thousands of kilometers. For example, the burning of the Amazon actually affects the health of people in Sao Paulo, thousands of kilometers away, and you can see the increases in hospital admissions from respiratory diseases. We know many infectious diseases are being affected or will be affected even more. Some of those we can predict, like dengue, for example, malaria. Others we're not quite sure exactly which ones they will be, but we have a high index of suspicion that zoonotic diseases, emerging zoonotic diseases, will also be increased by climate change. As you increase this carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, you increase the temperature, you deforest, take away the forests, you force wildlife closer together, and that increases the transmission of diseases from wildlife to humans. We also know that climate change affects food security, reducing crop yields, reducing the nutrient quality of crops, particularly in many tropical and subtropical regions. But it's not just the effects on physical health that should concern us, also the effects on mental health. We know, for example, this concept of solastalgia, which is the grief experienced by populations that actually see and experience environmental change, communities that are displaced from the Arctic, for example, by melting ice, or farmers that lose their livelihoods from droughts. But we also know that climate change, the anxiety about climate change, is affecting the health of young people around the world. Studies, for example, of many countries have shown that nearly 50% of young people say that climate change is concerning them so much, it's affecting their ability to function. So this is not a trivial impact, it's a serious impact on their mental health, climate anxiety. So what do we need to do? Well, we need to do two things. One is we need to adapt to climate change because it's already here, we're experiencing it, and we need to adapt to it as best we can. And that means, of course, strengthening universal health coverage. We know there have been setbacks because of decreases in financing after COVID, increasing debts and so on. But a resilient healthcare system is a crucial part of tackling climate change. You can have the best technology in the world, the best early warning system, but unless you have a health system that can respond to that, particularly through primary care, community care, then those early warning systems will not work. Of course, the healthcare system itself, as we've already heard, is an important source of greenhouse gas emissions, somewhere between 4 and 5%, much higher in the US. So we need to actually clean up our own act in the healthcare sector. We need to reduce emissions. Many of those come from the supply chains. Sometimes they come also from the emissions from our hospitals and our other healthcare facilities. And it's heartening to see how many countries have now joined the WHO ATTACH program. I think over 80 countries have now committed to building health systems which are resilient and which can withstand the impacts of climate change. And about 25, 26 countries have committed to decarbonising their healthcare system over the next few decades. The potential benefits of moving to a net zero healthy future are very, very large indeed, not just from reducing dangerous climate change, but also from the near-term benefits of phasing out fossil fuels, for example. About 5 million premature deaths can be attributed to the air that we breathe in, the fine particles and the other pollutants that damage our lungs and increase our risk of heart attacks and strokes and so on. So those 5 million deaths could be potentially prevented if we move towards clean, renewable energy. Our transport systems are frankly dysfunctional. They encourage overuse of the private car, particularly in high-income countries, and they also prevent us from having active opportunities for active travel, walking and cycling safely in many countries. So we need to reform our transport systems. And then finally, our food systems also. We know that we could prevent perhaps around 10 million premature deaths every year from inadequate and unhealthy diets by moving towards much more sustainable dietary choices, emphasising an adequate intake of fruit and vegetables, particularly, of course, in those countries which are emitting high amounts of greenhouse gas emissions. And of course, we know that there are profound inequities because those countries that are most responsible for greenhouse gases are not necessarily those that are suffering the biggest impact. So there's a profound issue of climate injustice, and high-income countries have to make the biggest cuts in emissions. The work that we've been doing is trying to catalogue some of the impacts of climate change on health, but also to quantify the benefits of moving towards a healthy net zero economy. And if you're interested to read more, you can read the report of our Lancet Pathfinder Commission, which documents many of the health benefits of moving towards that more sustainable net zero healthy future society. So in concluding, let me say that there are major threats ahead, not just from climate change, but also from the many other environmental threats that are really crowding in on our future. But there are big opportunities to take positive steps, both by creating more adaptable and resilient healthcare systems and societies, but also moving towards a healthy net zero future, reducing our dependence on fossil fuels, creating the freedom for people to consume healthy diets, and decarbonising our healthcare systems to make sure that they deliver affordable, universal health coverage at a much lower environmental footprint than they do at the moment. So thank you very much for inviting me to conclude, and I leave you with a positive message. There's so much that we can do, and we need to move forward together in order to achieve this shared goal. Thank you so much.
Up next, we have Gilles Carbonnier, Vice President of the International Committee of the Red Cross. Welcome.
Well, good evening, everyone, and a big thanks to the Geneva Health Forum for inviting me to share a few words with you and to share a few words, as was suggested, on the issue of violence against healthcare. With that, I would like to say that I'm sorry I wasn't given the instruction of a speech of 3 minutes, so I'll try to do my best because I know I'm the last one on the list. And let me first say a few words in French. Monsieur le Conseiller d'État, Monsieur...
Mr. State Councillor, Mr. Nicolas Durand, Mrs. Achab, President of the GHF. I was very inspired by the summary that you gave us, Sophia, about this increasing link between the environmental effects and climate change, global warming, and deterioration of health, particularly in the countries beset by conflicts in which we are working. This is something we are faced with every day. We see that this triple crisis of climate change and loss of biodiversity and pollution of all kinds is a factor that we absolutely have to take into account, particularly in the countries that don't have the resources to cope with these challenges. Then in recent years, migration and immigration have increased enormously in recent years, particularly in areas of armed conflict. And it's often people with the least resources that don't have the means to get access to health. So that's why I was delighted to see the recipients of your prizes. Malaria, of course, which you've been talking about today, continues to kill a large number of people, in particular children. Now, be it ICRC delegates or the broader population and medical personnel in general, I'm absolutely amazed at the courage and involvement of health workers when they try to take healthcare to extremely risky areas and regions of the world, because the determination that these people have brings hope to people who live in desperate parts of the world. This violence, which is often perpetrated against health workers and humanitarian workers, this ends up killing often not only health workers and humanitarian workers themselves, but also this hope. I want to switch to English.
That the protection of the medical mission, as you know, is at the very origin of modern humanitarianism, and the basics are very straightforward. Any wounded or any sick person, whether friend or enemy or foe, has to be cared for, has to have access to medical care, and has to be treated humanely. And those who are providing health care must be protected. This is, I think, a foundational building block of international humanitarian law, but also of our common humanity. And ensuring that healthcare can carry out their duty safely without being targeted, harassed, or pressured to act in contradiction with medical ethics has always been a priority, I think, for the ICRC and the wider humanitarian sector. Our dedicated medical staff, often working on the front line, in close collaboration with local partners, are determined to save lives and provide essential care, even when faced with very limited resources and risks in terms of safety and security. They provide a range of services, including hospital care, primary health care, first aid, mental health and psychosocial support, which is so important in these situations, and physical rehabilitation, as well as healthcare in detention. Yet the safe provision of such vital services has been too often hampered where it is most needed. Despite the adoption of a UN Security Council resolution back in 2016 on the protection of healthcare in armed conflict, we just identified between 2021 and 2022 some 1,300 events affecting the delivery of healthcare in over 30 major humanitarian operational contexts. And in the field, we see various patterns. We see weapon bearers entering facilities with their weapons and to function as safe spaces where adequate care can be provided with respect for medical ethics. It is essential that health facilities remain weapon-free. Which is more, under international humanitarian law, it is key to ensure that medical facilities remain civilian objects and do not become military targets because you have presence of weapons in and around these medical facilities. We see often pillages of medicines or equipment by weapon bearers or community members. We see weapon bearers stopping or delaying the medical mission at checkpoints, in some cases stopping ambulances without any regard to the urgency of saving the life of patients. And sadly, as I think we have seen in the media quite a lot over the past few years and few months, attacks also hit health personnel and health facilities directly. And we see that ambulances have also been targeted. Cyber attacks on health services are also on the rise, and the issue of cyber protection deserves much more urgent attention. Such attacks can be the result of a deliberate strategy to really try to sever the possibility for the population to have access to health care, or simply by a disregard or incorrect interpretation of obligations that parties to the conflict have under international humanitarian law and humanitarian principles. We also see that access to life-saving care is withheld from patients sometimes when they are labeled as terrorists. And providing them with medical care may be further hampered by states as the provision of health care is criminalized under domestic legislation or international instruments. And finally, we have seen wounded enemy combatants executed, sometimes even in ambulances or in hospital beds. And even if such instances are fortunately not so frequently reported, I think they exemplify the most egregious violations that have also a huge impact, not only, of course, for the victims, but also for the health staff working there, as well as for patients around them. So, ladies and gentlemen, colleagues, states have a key role to play to protect healthcare. Under international humanitarian law, they have an obligation to protect the sick and the wounded, as well as the medical personnel. And all signatory states, not only the states where you have an armed conflict, but all signatory states to the Geneva Convention have a responsibility to ensure respect for these obligations. So we have to build a strong culture of compliance, and for that it's important to elevate the protection of healthcare in armed conflict as a political priority, demanding from relevant ministries and other states and non-state actors to implement measures to effectively deal with this. It is in this context that at the ICRC over 10 years ago we have launched an initiative called Healthcare in Danger, together with colleagues in the International Red Cross and Red Crescent movement. And this initiative aims at addressing violence against patients, against healthcare personnel and facilities, and the objective is to ensure safe access and delivery of healthcare in armed conflicts and other emergencies. We have built now an international community of concern, bringing together 15 medical and humanitarian organizations who represent 30 million healthcare workers worldwide. We have emphasized practical action, developing programs and tools to directly support and protect the medical mission in violent settings, including individual protection of health professionals who are the victims of death threats, behavioral training to de-escalate violence, enhancing the resilience of health structures to violence, and specific mental health and psychosocial support to the staff victims of such violence, as well as training on security risks. Let me say now a few words about our engagement specifically with health ministries and their entities. They have increasingly championed actions to enhance the safety and security of healthcare, all the way from implementing relevant legislation to collecting data to document incidents, and building the capacity of healthcare workers to understand the risks, the issues at stake, but also their own rights and responsibilities. Health ministries, with our support, have also invested in public information campaigns to enhance this culture of compliance and protection with vast campaigns in many countries. I've seen that campaign during COVID-19 in Colombia, and this was extremely well received by patients during the pandemic when they were under such stress that we had seen in Colombia as elsewhere a lot of increase of violence against healthcare personnel and facilities. Together with other ministries who are in charge of defense, security forces and peacekeepers, health ministries play a key role in developing legislation to better protect healthcare, as well as standard operating procedures to limit the entry of weapons in health facilities. They can also minimize the risk of locating military targets close to healthcare structures to reduce the risk of what we called collateral damage hitting healthcare. So we can collectively seize this momentum, and we can build upon this work with health professionals in regional and global fora. Engaging the wider health community is necessary to learn from daily instances where the basic rules of protecting healthcare are respected, and fortunately we have daily instances where colleagues say, well, it has improved and now it works. Healthcare workers are protected. What's working well and how can it be transferred, adapted to other contexts? Together with healthcare workers, researchers, and civil society organizations, we can systematically record and analyze incidents of violence against healthcare. We can also take many measures at local level, ensuring that communities are also respecting and generating respect for healthcare in violence settings. Finally, academic partners and institutions can generate high-quality evidence on patterns of violence and the cost of such violence in terms of health outcomes. They can support the design, implementation, and evaluation of local preventive action to reduce and mitigate the impact of violence against healthcare. And I think it's important to publicize evidence-based policies and good practices that can be transferred and adapted. So in sum, and maybe to conclude on a positive note as my previous speaker, I think there are many ways to counter violence against healthcare. We certainly stand ready to contribute to this endeavor, notably through the Healthcare in Danger initiative, but also with actors and platform and colleagues such as the Geneva Health Forum and all the magnificent group of individuals, of institutions that you gather together with you here in Geneva. So thanks a lot, and again, together I'm sure we can make such an important difference which restores and maintains hopes in armed conflict. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Now to wrap up this day, just the very last words from the co-president of the Geneva Health Forum, Sophia Achab.
We came to the time of gratitude, and gratitude has shown to be effective for mental health. Believe me. Mais je vais switcher en français parce que je pense.
I will switch to French because I think that it's easier to say words such as this in one's mother tongue, and I would like to speak very sincerely. First of all, my thanks to the steering committee of the Geneva Health Forum. Thank you for receiving me for the first time. Thank you, Antoine Flau. Thank you, Véronique May, Monsieur Lab. Thank you to our ad interim director, Mr. Alain Colli. Thank you, Mr. State Councillor, for having been with us. Thank you to all the people who have worked to ensure the success of this edition. A great thank you to Dr. Eric Comte, Director of the Geneva Health Forum, and to his whole team. And my colleague, Mrs. Kane, Valerie Bernino, for the organization of the Environment and Health Day and for coordinating the logistics and the Science Speed talks. Thank you, Mr. Bonaventure, for organizing the day on migration and health. We would have been lost without you, together with Carlo Blanchet. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you, Emma Vogel, for coordinating yesterday's evening on migration. Thank you to the Masters in Global Health who volunteered to organize the logistics of the 3 days. They are our future generation. Thank you to all our partners whose logos you can see on this screen, and thank you all for your patience.
All right, it's clear that it has been a very diverse program.
Il est clair que
Diseases, the nexus between migration and healthcare, and of course, malaria. We've been able to showcase the players going above and beyond to make meaningful changes and recognize those who are paving new pathways. Be sure to stay for a cocktail hour starting right now. It was a pleasure guiding you through these afternoons. It is not a goodbye, but see you later until 2026.